Tennessee has made a change at defensive coordinator, and why this move was honestly historical for Josh Heupel. It's probably a good thing as well.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am your host, Cain, a member of the VolQuest.com team here in town, covering your Tennessee Volunteers, and of course, the host here of Locked On Vols, your number one spot for Tennessee football news and entertainment 5 mornings a week whenever you wake up. A part of Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day, the number one sports podcasting network available. And today's episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at Gametime, where you can download the Gametime app, create an account, put in the redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. A big shout out to Gametime. Big show coming up here today. We are reacting, we are discussing, we are analyzing, and we are debating what comes next. Tennessee's Josh Heupel has fired defensive coordinator Tim Banks. So we're going to discuss that news, what that means for Josh Heupel, as this is the first time in his coaching tenure that Josh Heupel has fired a coach. What's that mean for him as a coach moving forward? What's that mean for Tennessee now? All that coming up here in segment number 1. Some replacements. Who could take over for Tim Banks? Where could Tennessee go? That'll be a little hot board talk in segment number 2, and then getting into some of your mailbag questions in segment number 3. So, first and foremost, I think a lot of you guys, especially you everydayers, maybe some of you guys that check in, a couple of times a month, or maybe you're new to the show or whatever. Here's something to know about me. I'm not one to stand on anyone's grave and dance. I'm not one to celebrate the firings of people unless they're scumbags and they absolutely deserve it because they're awful human beings. But, if you get fired because you're not performing well enough, I mean, that's the punishment. No need, in my opinion. My style is not to get over there and rub salt in the wound. That's just not who I am. But this is a results-based business. And based on the 2025 results from Tennessee's defense, Tim Banks is no longer the defensive coordinator for Tennessee. Tim Banks, great guy. Tim Banks, good family man. I've talked to him several times off the record about stories I'm working on, or got an additional quote or an additional nugget or something for a story that I was working on, and he was always kind with me and with my time and respected me. So he's a good man. I appreciate the times and the interactions that I've had with him, and certainly he'll go on and he'll coach a lot of football, and he'll continue with his career of coaching defenses like he was doing before he got to Tennessee. So I wish him nothing but the best. Fact of the matter is, Tennessee defense was better and better and better for 4 years. Well, I guess 3 years. You take out year number 1 because that's the base anomaly there. That's kind of where you're starting. Tennessee defense got better and got better, and then it was elite, and then it got really, really bad. Really, really bad. And it's a what have you done for me lately business. And Tennessee's defense, nobody is trying to say that Tennessee defense this year was acceptable. Sure, there were injuries. There were plenty of injuries in the defensive interior. Defensive tackles injured all year long, forcing defensive ends to slide down and play defensive tackle. And it kind of worked out well for Tennessee because Don Bailey, I think, was Tennessee's best defensive lineman this year. But Jackson Moy was never a guy that really blossomed here in his final year at Tennessee, and that's unfortunate. He dealt with injuries all year long. Bryson Eason was playing hurt all year long. Joshua Josephs was playing hurt all year long. Football is a contact sport. It's part of it. You didn't have your number one overall draft, not number one overall, excuse me. You didn't have your likely first-round draft pick in cornerback Jamal McCoy at all this year. Okay, you had your other returning starter at cornerback in Ricky Gibson that missed all but 19 snaps this year. He got hurt 19 snaps into the season opener. So, yeah, this year kind of stunk in the personnel department. But there's no reason that where you were defensively being as elite as you were in 2024. I'm talking top 10 defense nationally, number 6 in scoring defense, number 3 in stop rates, one of the national leaders in rush defense, third down defense, red zone defense. I mean, where you were defensively in 2024, it was elite. And anybody sitting here that still wants to trash that doesn't watch football. I've got friends. I've got one friend that every time I give him a dig in this podcast, he said, I heard what you said about me today. I never mentioned him by name, but he's listening right now, and he's about to text me. He still won't give credit to Tennessee's defense in 2024. It was the only reason. I don't want to say only. It was the reason Tennessee made the college football playoff, was that defense, that elite defense, coupled with a run game. Okay, that was Tennessee's path to the college football playoff. But again, and that got Tim Banks a contract extension. His contract was up. He signed a 3-year extension in February of this past year, paying him $2.15 million. Okay, and then a year later, less than a year later, there's a parting of ways. $4.3 million range is the separation pay that Tennessee is going to have to pay Tim Banks. There's no better industry in all of the working profession than the fired coaches industry, okay? Even if you're an assistant at a top flight school like Tim Banks at Tennessee, you're getting paid $4.3 million, somewhere around there, to essentially go away. Again, there's nothing better out there than being a fired coach, that is for sure. Josh Heupel, he offered a couple of quotes on the moving on from Tim Banks. He says, quote, "I want to thank Tim for everything he's done at Tennessee the last 5 seasons. He helped restore our program to national prominence. More importantly, Tim is a great man of character and someone I have the utmost respect for. We wish Tim all the best moving forward. These are tough decisions, but one I ultimately felt was necessary for the future of our program. We are fully committed to identifying our next defensive coordinator who will uphold the standard that Tennessee has historically been known for." End quote. Good quote. I thought that was well said. This is a move that Josh Heupel had to make. You know why? Because Josh Heupel, in his entire coaching tenure, unless he got somebody fired as an OC somewhere, or, I mean, I'm not going to act like I know any of the ins and outs when he was at UCF, and I know there have been people that have left staffs before, but to my knowledge, specifically here at Tennessee, in terms of an on-the-field coach or a coordinator, this is the first time Josh Heupel has fired anybody. And Josh Heupel was pretty much the scapegoat at Oklahoma. Josh Heupel's offense, in whatever year that was, 2012 or whatever the year, they were averaging 30, 31, 32 points per game back in 2012, which is like averaging 50 points a game now. And he was run out of town so Bob Stoops could keep employing his brother. And Josh Heupel, that's why he has a very strained relationship with the Stoops family, okay? And I can't speak for Josh Heupel, but I truly believe that's hung with him. So he's always going to give the benefit of the doubt, and he's always going to try to give his coaches that work under him every single chance to make it work, because he knows what it feels like to be on the other end. But hey, you're sitting in the big chair, okay? You're making $9 million a year, okay? You are the head football coach at Tennessee. Sometimes tough decisions have to be made, and that's one of these tough decisions. Again, 2021. The dumpster fire that Josh Heupel inherited, you think that was bad. Do you guys remember that defense that year? Do you guys remember the personnel defensively that Tennessee had to work with in 2021? There were a couple of good players. I'm not trying to act like there wasn't. There was a couple NFL guys, but there was no depth, and there was a lot of guys that were starting and playing 70 snaps a game that wouldn't be playing 20 snaps a game in 2025. And again, Tennessee's defense in 2025 was not good. So the results in 2021 were not good. 2022, they got really good sacking the quarterback, TFLs. They took some steps. 2023, they took a lot of steps. Not in terms of pass defense, but they took a lot of steps from 2022 to 2023. 2024, elite. And then 2025, though, one of the national leaders in defensive touchdowns, despite leading the nation in sacks midway through the year, despite one of the SEC best takeaway defenses, the scoring defense, not good, 92nd overall. Rush defense, awful. Pass defense, awful. Just wasn't good enough. What have you done for me lately? And this is a results-based industry. And so with that, Josh Heupel parts ways with Tim Banks. So I think this was big for Josh Heupel in terms of his evolution as a head coach, because nobody wants to be the bad guy. But again, you're making $9 million a year. Your name's on the door over there. Sometimes you got to make the tough call. And that's what happened here. And so I don't think Tennessee defense should have been nearly as bad as what it was. Again, a lot of injuries you had to deal with, but hey, that's football. I think at points in times there was just some defensive calls that didn't make sense, like third and short, essentially. You got linebackers bailing out in zone coverage, just bailing out and backpedaling well past the marker. Like defensive backs playing 5 yards off on its 3rd and 4. I thought 3rd and short defense was not good. In fact, Tennessee's defense was, at points in times, was actually better 3rd and short than 3rd and long, which is just horrendous, right? I thought a lot of what happened defensively this year did not make a whole lot of sense schematically at all, to be honest with you. But I thought Tim Banks actually was, earlier on in his tenure, when he was forced to be aggressive a whole lot more because you didn't have the depth and you didn't have the personnel. I kind of thought that was Tim Banks at his best, to be completely honest. So Tim Banks getting paid $4.3-ish million in separation pay. Tennessee fires Tim Banks. And for the first time, well, not the first time, because Tennessee had to replace Alex Golesh, who went and become the head coach at USF, now at Auburn. Second time in the Josh Heupel era at Tennessee, Josh Heupel will be tasked with replacing a coordinator. So, again, I know a lot of fans don't like Tim Banks because he was very, very bad this year, but best of luck to him. I'm excited to see where he goes next, but now it's onwards for Tennessee, and we will see where the Volunteers choose to go next for a defensive coordinator. A lot of names out there. It is hot board season. Your boy made a hot board the other day as well. We will talk about some potential targets. Who could be the next Tennessee defensive coordinator and what I want to see in that Tennessee defensive coordinator. That is coming up next. So we continue on here. It is your Tuesday morning Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. The holidays come with two big goals: feeding people well and finding gifts that they're actually going to love. And when you want both handled in one move, Omaha Steaks is the way to go. From hosting to grilling, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your door. Because during their Sizzle All the Way sale, you can stock up and save in a huge way. 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners get an extra $35 off with code COLLEGE at checkout. I've sent these Omaha Steaks. I've sent Omaha Steaks as a Christmas gift in years past to my father-in-law, to my parents, to family members. It's easy on my end. It's very doable, and it's a good gift because a lot of these people I send to love to cook, and it's not just steaks or burgers. It's comfort foods, it's desserts, it's appetizers. It's the whole 9 yards. It's really, really good flavor as well, and that's at Omaha Steaks. So it was really easy for me, and it was a fun gift and a tasty gift for them as well for the holiday season. Save big on gourmet gifts this holiday, favorites like with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code, that is college. Hot board season. Everybody loves a good old coaching search, right? It's funny. Everybody demands a coach to be fired, and then you demand for a hot board immediately, and then you complain about the names that are on that hot board. I saw it all day yesterday. I mean, with my hot board, with other publications' hot boards, I mean, it is what it is. And the fact of the matter is, early on, it's anyone's guess. That's what I kind of put in mine. Actually, I'm going to read you exactly what I put in the hot board that I made yesterday, or I helped make with members of my team over at VolQuest.com. It certainly was not just me. I essentially put, with it being this early, it's anyone's guess. However, below are a list of names who would make sense if interest were shown. The title of my hot board was Hotboard 1.0, names who could be considered for Tennessee's defensive coordinator. Right? These are names that make sense. When you make a hot board, especially the early versions of a hot board, and if you're lucky, you don't make too many different versions. I think I made 3 versions of a hot board for Tennessee baseball, and boy, I got really lucky because I hit on several of the ones that Tennessee actually had interest in, and really the only other one that Tennessee interviewed for the job was on my initial hot board, luckily. But, early on, you're just looking for, okay, where is this, who has crossed paths with Josh Heupel in years past? Schematically, who runs a similar defense? Looking at teams who just make coaching moves. Is that coach being retained? Oh, that coach is available? Okay, well, you can make sense here. There are a number of different factors you're kind of looking at here. But, I mean, it doesn't stop there, obviously. If you want to go and hire away somebody else's DC, you go and hire away somebody else's DC. Penn State did that with Jim Knowles last year. Obviously, that didn't work out with James Franklin. Now it's Matt Campbell over there. He's bringing his DC. So Jim Knowles is actually available, and he appeared on our hot list or our hot board over VolQuest.com just because he's a proven commodity. He knows this landscape very well, and currently he's without a job. I don't know how realistic Jim Knowles is. I don't know, but he's worth putting on a hot board, as is a guy like Will Muschamp, who has been a head coach not at one but two different teams in this conference, has been a defensive coordinator at, gosh, if you count Texas now, that's Texas, LSU, Alabama. He was the head coach at Georgia. I mean, he got his handprints all over this league, right? Will Muschamp was the DC at Georgia, transitioned into an off-the-field role. I got to be honest with you, I don't know if he was fired or if he truly wanted to spend more time with his family. Normally, when that reason is put out there, it's because they fired him. But I don't know if that's the case. I don't know. But my point is, Will Muschamp is not calling plays defensively for anybody in the Southeastern Conference right now. He is an off-the-field analyst for Georgia right now. He would make a whole lot of sense. I'm not saying that there's anything going on there. I'm just saying, like, names like that would make sense, right? You throw on there. Gerard Mayo makes sense, right? Chris Burke was on my first baseball hot board. You know why? Because Chris Burke, at one point in time, I think he wanted to coach. Did I think, honestly, when I wrote Chris Burke's name that he would be the next head coach at Tennessee? No, I did not. But somebody with strong ties to the program, with media presence, knows the game better than anybody, knows the landscape. I mean, hey, that's Gerard Mayo in this case, right? Gerard Mayo, who is a former NFL coach who was fired, obviously, by Robert Kraft before last year. They went out and got Vrabel. Patriots are doing really, really well right now. But Gerard Mayo, in my opinion, wasn't given the tools to succeed in New England. But he was the defensive coordinator there for quite some time. Had a great career in New England, a fantastic career here at Tennessee. I think Gerard Mayo is going to want to stay in the NFL and coach. That's just my opinion. But we will see what happens. But putting a name like Gerard Mayo on this list makes all the sense in the world. But here's where I'm at. And everybody, we at VolQuest.com made a hot board. Every different publication in town made a hot board, and a lot of the names are the same. There's some different names everywhere you look and everything. A lot of the same names we're hearing right now, and a name that I think would make a whole lot of sense. And I'm intrigued to know if this gets any traction, and I'm intrigued to know if, just because they crossed paths a couple of different times in the past, it feels like to me that would be kind of like a Heupel type hire. Ryan Walters is the name that I continue to hear. Again, I think we're too early, at least at the time of this recording, to say that, okay, any interviews have taken place, or, Tennessee's going to interview this guy, or Tennessee's moved on from this guy to this guy. I think it's too early at the time of this recording. However, I do think this is going to go fast. I'll get more on that here in a moment. But Ryan Walters is the guy that I think would make sense. He's the current defensive coordinator at Washington, former head coach at Purdue. He coached there for 2 seasons. He was on staff, defensive staff, when Heupel was at Missouri, and he was at Oklahoma as well when Heupel was the offensive coordinator. So 2 guys that have been together at 2 different stops. I don't know their relationship. I don't know what their working relationship is like. I don't know any of that. But 2 guys that I think certainly, would have probably caught up a time or 2 in the past and know each other from previous stops. So Ryan Walters, he's currently at Washington, just completing his first year there. He's spent time at Missouri and Oklahoma, as I mentioned. He also has coordinating experience at Missouri. He was a really good defensive coordinator at Missouri, Illinois. He's also made stops at North Texas, Arizona, and Colorado. Ryan Walters is a name that I've seen a lot of different places here on day one of this quote-unquote coaching search. So we'll see if that one gains any traction, the rest of the way. Another one that I've seen a couple different places is Colin Hitchler. Colin Hitchler was a part of Kalen DeBoer's initial staff at Alabama, and I believe DeBoer fired him after the 2024 season. He is currently at James Madison, and James Madison has the number 2 ranked defense in the country in terms of total defense, allowing 247.6 yards per game. Now, yes, James Madison in the college football playoff, good for them. James Madison comes from the group of 5. They're not playing in the SEC and all that, but at its level, it's been very, very good. The second-ranked defense in terms of total defense in college football. He was the co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach at Alabama, again, as I mentioned, in 2024. He held the same role at Wisconsin in 2023. He spent time at Cincinnati, South Alabama, Arkansas State, a Division III football program, and he got his coaching career started in the NFL. Off-the-field works like training camp assistant and player personnel, like off-the-field roles with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. So a guy that has been around a little bit, has obviously coordinating experience, and has a little bit of experience in this league. Not a whole lot, but he was with Alabama in 2024. I think Colin Hitchler's the name that is worth monitoring in terms of, again, I've seen it a couple of different places, and we'll see if it gains any type of traction as well. Another name that I've seen a couple different times on Monday afternoon or Monday during the day was Corey Batoon of Missouri. Second year as the DC at Missouri right now. The squad ranks number 10 nationally in total defense, allowing 274 yards a game. Extensive secondary coaching background. He's coached safeties at South Alabama, where he was a defensive coordinator from 21 to 23. He was in Hawaii in 2018 and 19, Florida Atlantic in 2017, Ole Miss 2015 and 16. Also served as defensive coordinator while at Hawaii, co-DC at Florida Atlantic, and special teams coordinator with the Rebels of Ole Miss. He was at Ole Miss for a while. On the field coaching role for 2 years, off the field coaching role for 2 years as well. So he was there for about 4 seasons, 5 years total at Ole Miss. So again, kind of knows the landscape of the league. And of course, he's at Missouri right now as well. He also has defensive line coaching experience all the way back in 1997, but he did coach the defensive line back in Montana in 1997. So Corey Batoon's another name that I've seen. Another name I've seen mentioned a couple of different places is Fresno State defensive coordinator Nick Benedetto. Second year as a DC with Fresno State. They're ranked top 15 nationally. So I've seen his name. I don't know. Again, it's early on right now, but I think the name that I've seen the most and I've seen the most conversations surrounding at this point would be Ryan Walters. I'm not saying he's a front runner. Again, I'm not saying that they've met and talked or anything like that, but I have seen the most people talking about Ryan Walters, the former Purdue head coach and currently DC of Washington right now. Travarius Robinson's another name that I find interesting. Currently, he is at Georgia, where he is the co-DC and safeties coach. He spent time at Alabama. He spent time at Miami, South Carolina, Auburn, Florida, Texas Tech. He played at Auburn. He coached at Auburn. Again, this guy has been everywhere in the SEC, it feels like, and he's currently at Georgia. I've seen his name a couple different places as well. So, yeah, again, it's very early on, but I do think two things are going to be clear with this. Number one, I think that this could go pretty quickly. I don't think that Josh Heupel chose to part ways with Tim Banks, and then it's just now all of a sudden starting a national search. I think that he had some guys in mind or had a guy in mind, and I'm not saying an announcement's going to be, happening this morning at 10 a.m. I mean, it could, but I think this is going to move pretty quickly. Also, I think it would make sense, and maybe it doesn't. The most important thing is about getting the right guy, okay? But also, I think it could make sense to where, the guy that you hire has a secondary background, because that's what Tim Banks was, and you are losing Tim Banks, so you're kind of losing a secondary coach. Now, again, will this DC come in and bring all of his own guys? I don't know. If you remember when Heupel was hired, Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator, was one of the final coaches he hired. I mean, his defensive staff a lot of it was in place. Rodney Gardner was in place. Willie Martinez was in place. I want to say Ryan Jean-Marie was in place. And then Tim Banks was hired. I don't know when Mike Eckler joined the party. Could that be the same here? I don't know. Could a defensive coordinator come in and keep some holdovers and then eventually get his own guys potentially? I don't know. We'll see. But I think, if Rodney Gardner wants to re-up his deal and coach at Tennessee, I think Josh Heupel is going to allow that. That's just what I think right now. But we'll see exactly what happens. Just because a new DC comes does not mean that he's going to clean house, or it doesn't mean that he's going to retain anybody. I think it's just a conversation between him and the head coach. So I think it would make sense to have a secondary background with this hire. But then again, at the end of the day, it's all about just making the right hire. So we will see what happens. Early stages of a coaching search, a defensive coordinator coaching search, as Tim Banks and Tennessee have parted ways after 5 years. This will take shape and evolve over the course of the next couple of days, no doubt about that. But that's kind of where we are right now. What do you want to see in Tennessee's next defensive coordinator? I want to see aggressiveness. I want to see blitzing. I want to see changing up in the back end. I want to see lockdown man coverage. I want to see pressure generated from the front four. I want to see the middle of the field defended. It's not been a strong point. I want to see safeties prioritized in the secondary for sure. And, of course, just like in any defense, I want to see pass rushers. I want to see Tennessee get after the quarterback, and I want to see Tennessee defend the run like nobody's business. I mean, I'm naming off a lot of things that everybody wants in a defensive coordinator, right? But safety play prioritized, middle of the field emphasized, shutting down the run, getting after the passer. Aggressive. I'm fine with being very aggressive on third downs. If you beat the blitz, throw into the blitz and beat it, hey, you beat it. Good job. Way to go. But, don't just sit back and let it happen. That's kind of what I want to see. I want to see a lot of aggression from Tennessee's next defensive coordinator. So this will continue to take shape, and we will give progress reports along the way right here on Locked On Vols. We will answer your questions. Any questions you guys have coming up next right here as we get into the mailbag edition of the show. This is Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Gametime app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Gametime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when the great seats open, and buy tickets the moment that they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. All you have to do, pull up the app. The layout makes it super simple to scroll through the matchups and compare seat views. Again, you can see your seat before you pay purchase for your seat, and no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you get. No fine print. Okay, that's another advantage of the Gametime app. Pick a game, tap a section, and you can have your tickets locked within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for that fine print. Like I mentioned, prices include fees up front, which I love. Alerts for the teams and matches make it easy to grab tickets the moment that they drop, so you're not missing out. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets today. Every match, concert, or event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, put in the redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the app, make an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Go ahead and download the Gametime app today. All right, guys and gals, we got a final segment left here on this Tuesday morning Locked On Vols. A quick one here. A couple of questions I'll get into. A lot of questions asking about who I wanted to see Tennessee, target as a defensive coordinator. I mentioned a lot of names that I think are pretty impressive. I'm going to continue to dive in, the list of candidates when we get a more refined list and kind of know who Josh Heupel's channeling in on and kind of learn about that defense. I think defenses have to be multiple, and we're actually going to get a question about that here in a moment. Defenses have to be multiple, but I think it's imperative. And I say this, and watch Tennessee hire somebody with something else. Like, I think it's imperative. You got to play nickel. You got to have a nickel on the field, which is the basic 4-2-5 with the star, right? I think that's important in today's defense. I think linebackers running sideline to sideline is important. I think having athletic and quick defensive linemen. That's why you see 4-2-5. Now, there are some 3 stacks. I don't think Tennessee's personnel really matches a 3-3 stack right now, but again, that's something that Tennessee has to go up against on offense a lot. You've seen Missouri, you've seen Florida, you've seen defenses in the past, give Tennessee issues in a 3-3 stack, but that's not necessarily something that I think many teams live in. But I think it's important to be versatile, and I think it's important to be multiple. That's what defenses are nowadays. But I think nickel at minimum, 5 defensive backs on the field at one time is a must. Moving forward. Let's go to Daniel. He said, not as much of a question, but am I crazy to think that Joshua Dobbs would have been so much fun in this offense? Yeah. I mean, no, you're not crazy. Yeah, he would be a blast. I mean, he reminds me of Hendon Hooker. I think he was more of a runner, obviously more of a willing runner than Hendon for sure. Hendon was a much better thrower than Joshua Dobbs, but just his athleticism, his smarts. Would I have traded Hendon Hooker for Joshua Dobbs? I don't think so. I think Hendon was a better quarterback. Maybe that's what have you done for me lately? Obviously, we've seen Hendon play here more recently than Joshua Dobbs, but I just think Hendon was more of a total package where Dobbs had some limitations throwing the football. Now, Joshua Dobbs has hung around the NFL for 9 years, and he's still in the NFL right now. So is Hooker, but Dobbs has had some success at points in times being forced into action. So both those guys I want on my team. But to your point, Daniel, are you crazy for thinking he would have balled out in this offense? No, he would have been amazing in this offense. I also think Jerry Garantano would have been really good in this offense for sure. Let's go to Randy. Eric, I think the key to a successful next year will be quarterback play. Should Heupel be trying hard to pave the way for Joey to return, and what would his NIL value be if he returns. There's nothing that Heupel can do, in my opinion, to kind of pave the way, as you phrased it, for Joey to return. Like, that's all about the courts. Does it get expedited? How quickly does this resolve? Is it going to be taken care of before the transfer portal window opens? And then do you win the case? Will those JUCO years get thrown out? There's nothing that anybody at Tennessee, I mean, there can be lobbying, I'm sure, but there's nothing that anybody at Tennessee or Josh Heupel or Joey Aguilar himself that can do to kind of sway an opinion of a judge. That's why, like, when everybody says any idea about Joey Aguilar, no clue. Just no clue right now. Like, nobody knows, you know? But what would his NIL value be if he returns? It's a good question. I mean, I assume he would get a raise. Probably deserves it. Tennessee paid him a good amount of money, not nearly in the same area code as what they were paying Nico, but they paid him a hefty chunk of money to come to Tennessee because, quite frankly, you were desperate at the time. All right, it worked out very well. Joey Aguilar certainly outplayed what his contract essentially was, so I would assume that he would probably ask for a raise. But I can't speak for Joey Aguilar. I can't speak for Tennessee. I don't know what those conversations would entail. But I think that both sides would be like, all right, let's come to an agreement. Let's get this thing going, right? Because you got something good working out for you. But yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. Doug wants to know, who are some names you're hearing to replace Banks? Talked about a lot of names we've been seeing the past day here in segment number 2. Could we also benefit from simplifying the defense from being so multiple? Yeah, this is the question I was referring to. Tackling and fundamentals were lacking, and it seemed like while we did a lot of different things on defense, we didn't do one thing particularly well. Yeah, it's a good point. I'm not saying you're wrong, because I don't think you're wrong, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. Tennessee was not a master of anything outside of like going and getting the ball, which is a good thing, you know, but you know, just stopping the run, stopping the pass, stopping points from being put on the scoreboard. Tennessee was not good in that regard. Tennessee was not a good tackling football team at all. It got better as the year went along. But it was not a good tackling football team. Was not a good tackling football team against Vanderbilt to end the season. That's for sure. Now, again, it is so important to be multiple on defense. In this era, offenses have never been more complex. Offenses have never been more spread out. They've never been more motion and trying to confuse defenses and creating those mismatches. In order to not get in those mismatches, defenses have to be multiple. That's why I think a base 4-2-5 is pretty much the universal base that you see in all of college football and high school football right now. It allows you to be multiple. Now, you got to be able to adjust. Tennessee's adjustment to a 4-3 defense when going up against 12 personnel is a good adjustment. Tennessee going to a quarter package or a dime package in heavy passing situations, that's an adjustment. I think you've got to be multiple. But to your point, just focus on fundamentals, man. Like Tennessee tried to go get that football out and never secured a tackle half the time, and that's kind of where it's where you got yourself in trouble a lot of times. Couple more here. Let's go to Ed. Good or bad, what's been surprising about the Vols men's basketball team so far this season? I'm not going to sit here and act like I call them losing 3 in a row because I did not. But like growing pains, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, you look at all the turnover, and everybody's got turnover, especially in basketball nowadays, but think about everybody that handles the basketball. It's all brand new, outside of Bishop Boswell that didn't really play a whole lot last year. Like, it's all new. Your 2 primary scorers, one is 18 years old and one was playing at Belmont University a couple years ago, right? Like, it's brand new. And so it's going to take some time to come together, in my opinion. So that hasn't been surprising to me. I guess JP Estrella, Felix Alpara knocking down threes, that's been a bit surprising to me at points in time. Carla, Tim Banks gone. Which 3 to 5 defensive coaches would you recommend to help UT return to the college football playoff in 2026? Yeah, I kind of already spoke on that one. A couple of Legend Bay questions, and we'll wrap this thing up. I don't have an update on Legend Bay. Essentially, anybody asking for an update, somebody says, do you know if Tennessee's already been paying him? I don't think so. I can't speak for sure, but, I mean, he was committed to Ohio State. He flipped away from Tennessee, committed to Ohio State for a while, and then, flipped back to Tennessee on National Signing Day, signed with the Vols, now wants to go to Ohio State. I can't answer all those questions. I don't know, but no update there. That's kind of a day-by-day thing. We'll see what happens. I think if Legend Bay wants to, get out of his deal with Tennessee, like at worst-case scenario, he can enter the transfer portal in January and transfer to Ohio State, and he can enroll there in spring classes, and it's like nothing was ever harmed, right? You just miss out on bowl practices, I guess. that, at minimum, that's what can happen with Legend Bay. But I don't have an update there. We'll see what happens. I mean, that thing can change, really, really quickly. I think that's it. That's all I got. Yeah. So appreciate you guys, as always, for sending in your questions, comments, concerns here for a Tuesday Locked On Vols. And, yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll be tracking Tennessee's defensive coordinator search throughout the next couple of days right here on Locked On Vols. Send in any questions, comments, concerns you guys have. We'll hit on those on tomorrow's show. Josh Ward will give his thoughts on where Tennessee needs to look for a defensive coordinator, all that and more coming up on tomorrow's Locked On Vols. Stay safe. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is Locked On Vols.